Hello, everybody. Welcome to Future Left Podcast. I'm Casey Rogers here with Adam Simpson. How are you doing, Adam?
That's me. I'm all right. Well, go
Oh,
there.
you pulled a Kanye. You were almost happy. Um, yeah, we're from Future Left, and we talk about all things relevant to a progressive future, such as 3D printed gay marriage certificates or fully
Heavens.
automated abortion clinics.
Get it. What?
This is the
No,
thing.
come on, man.
They already have them in Japan. You can like us on Facebook.
We're
You
gonna
can follow us
lose the Catholic demographic with that joke.
because of Japan.
No,
A lot of
because
Catholics
of the
in Japan?
abortion thing.
Oh no, Catholics are all about abortion these days.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. You can like us on Twitter. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter. You can visit us at futureleft.org. And we're also on a whole bunch of other stuff, Adam. Did you know that? We're on
Oh,
SoundCloud,
God. Yeah.
iTunes,
Yes.
LinkedIn,
Indeed.
Etsy, Grinder.
No.
And you can also sleep at the foot of Adam's bed via Airbnb. Today, our main talk is going to be on...
Big data.
Yeah, we're going to be joined by Michael Bufano. But first, we're going to look at a couple of our favorite stories from this week's Bleeding Edge News. Adam, what was your favorite story of the week?
Oh man, there's a lot of good stories. There was one of the most interesting ones about 3D. There's a 3D printer available at a local library, and this guy uses it to fix his refrigerator. I love that story. I want to talk more about that later. But
Sounds like something you made up, but
no, it's not something I made up. It's I don't know.
I picture
like,
a guy
maybe the
going.
details.
I picture a guy in his bathrobe going to the library, just like, I gotta fix my refrigerator.
Apparently, it costs him like 10 cents per ounce of filament to make the repair part for his refrigerator. And of course, he has a library membership probably, but it's just super cheap. Yeah, I know. It's incredible.
I always heard that every aspect, even the filament part of the 3D printing, would be cost prohibitive. But I guess
Nope, wrong again.
Mama's wrong again.
Yeah. No, but I guess my favorite story this week. Well, not favorite.
Yeah.
Just the story that I want to complain about before we get to the real thing. It was about it was about these 5 senators, U.S. senators, not Roman. But it was an article in the Guardian called "Senators Demand U.S." Hold on. Senators demand U.S. halt inquiries into climate denial by oil companies. It's in the Guardian by Alan Uhas. That's a good name.
So, is there anyone involved with this group of 5 that possibly looks like a weasel?
I think you're referring to Ted Cruz, not
Is
that
he?
the other guys
Really?
are. Yeah, Ted Cruz is. I don't know. He's the most sophisticated AI in this group of non-humans.
There hasn't been a lot of progress made then.
yeah. He's not as good as Siri, but he's it's still pretty impressive.
Still pretty lifelike.
No, the other senators include David Vitta of Louisiana,
Vitta.
David Perdue of Georgia, Jeff Sessions of Alabama, Mike Lee of Utah. That's all 5 of them. And so now you know who to I don't know, think mean thoughts about at night. But anyway, these 5 senators demand that the Department of Justice stop investigating Exxon Mobil's alleged lying to shareholders and the public about the dangers of climate change, which is fascinating because the Department of Justice has not confirmed that such an investigation exists. So we're kind of jumping the gun.
Yeah.
But it's always better to get out in front of these inquiries into fraud. They allege that the investigation is stifling the debate on one of the most controversial issues of our time. Controversial. Climate change and fossil fuels. It's controversial, don't you know?
I don't know if it's happening.
Yeah, of course. Casey still lives in Texas, so bear with him.
Yeah.
Exxon recently defied shareholders who wanted to acknowledge climate change, and the CEO actually said, and I quote, hold on, I'm gonna quote, and I quote, the CEO of Exxon, Rex Tillerson. God, that's an American name.
It is. Rex Tillerson.
But he told shareholders, until we have breakthroughs in green technology, just saying turn the taps off is not acceptable to humanity. A, no one's saying turn the taps off.
Right.
B, until we have breakthroughs in green technology, get on the bus, Rex.
Oh.
No, you see where I was going, but I changed it.
Yeah.
Anyway. This is just completely absurd in my view.
Well, there was another quote that I liked from the article as well from Senor Schneiderman.
Oh, yeah.
Who was what's his position?
He's the Attorney General in New York, I think.
Yes.
Something
so,
like
he acknowledged the argument that this group of 5 senators was making, and but he added the First Amendment. So they were trying to argue that it was stifling free speech.
Yeah.
But he reminded them that the First Amendment, and then he called them ladies and gentlemen, which does not give you the right to commit fraud. So that's weird because I thought the First Amendment did give you the right to commit fraud.
It doesn't. Oh, my favorite detail about the article is I feel like the Guardian's author was Alan Uhas. He just loves this so much he just wanted to inject it, even though it had nothing to do with the story. He recalls that Ted Cruz called a jazz musician to testify about climate change on Capitol Hill.
But he was also a former Navy admiral, so he's double.
Good.
At least there's some qualification. No,
yeah, actually, I couldn't tell if was he both of those things, or was it like a jazz vocalist and the jazz vocalist was opposite a meteorologist and a Navy admiral.
Oh, okay.
So no, this man may have an impressive service record, but the Guardian didn't report it. I don't think that's the case though. But no.
No, jazz musicians are notoriously horrible. Draft
Skibidi bip bip bip. No, that's copyright infringement. But anyway,
George Gershwin.
No, that was my favorite story of the week. There are a lot of good ones, and everyone should subscribe to it, including these 5 senators, as well as Rex Tillerson. They should all subscribe to the Bleeding Edge so they can pull their heads out of their asses. Anyway, Casey, what was your favorite story, or the most important one, I guess?
Well, I don't know if it was the most important. It was just the one that I found particularly pointed in its assessment of a situation was the one about how lawyers can choose to remove people from juries and how that's often led to them shifting the balance racially.
Yeah. So, This is by a former judge, or no? It's by a current judge.
Yeah, and what they've the case study, I guess, was Georgia, Foster versus Chapman, and the Supreme Court ruled that the prosecutors in that case had illegally barred African Americans from serving as jurors, and this was a death penalty trial. And,
this is crazy. They actually went through the list of potential jurors, and they would write B next to their name.
Yes, and they would, and if you were wondering, maybe B doesn't stand for black. They also highlighted all the black people in green. and then the author said, on 4 separate copies of the juror list.
Yeah,
I like to think
Lord. I like to think that originally they tried to highlight them in black, and they're like, fuck.
We just now you can't read it.
We need a new list. We should just start.
What's the darkest non-black color? Green.
Exactly.
But so the article makes the argument that the best way to end this sort of racial discrimination in jury selection is to limit the number of jurors that lawyers can strike for no reason at all.
Of peremptory challenges. That means there's no reason. You're just like, I don't like this guy.
It mentioned that in some cases, prosecutors have six preemptory challenges, and that the defense can usually have 10. So that means prosecutors can make 6 changes to the jurors, as I understand it, and defense can make 10.
They can strike them from the juror pool. Yeah.
In federal death penalty cases, each side can make 20. So that means each side can literally try their best to give it the demographics they want.
Yeah. What was weird is in my mind, there seems to be an assumption here by prosecutors, at least in the kind of narrative that Judge Newman spins here, that they assume that an all-black jury is going to look unfavorably on convicting a young man, a young black man specifically, I suppose, for murder, and then even less likely to give him the death penalty. Which I mean, I kind of hate that assumption already. I'm just like, first of all, we can get into death penalty, but yeah.
I'm sure you were as aware as I was of the O.J. Simpson trial, where I don't think that proves that black people
Juice?
The Juice. Did you know?
What happened? What happened with Juice?
So.
Is this that thing about him stealing things that he wrote on?
No. This is about him almost cutting his wife's head off and killing her boyfriend.
My word!
What? You didn't know about that?
No, I remember pre-ordering his autobiography. It never came in the mail. I don't know why.
Oh, the one called "If I Did It, Here's How I Would Have Done It."
Yeah, I thought that was
by cutting their heads off.
I thought that was about him running for president or state government or something.
No, vicious murder.
That's terrible.
Yeah.
But anyway, back to this more important issue.
Yeah. So I'm sure we remember that there was a lot of racial tension at this time, and that white people generally seemed, or the people said, and this was very what do I want to say, anecdotal, that black people just did not want him to be convicted, and you hear similar things about the Michael Jackson trial, but I don't remember ever seeing
Michael Jackson being a famous pedophile,
homosexual pedophile,
pedophile,
a deadophile.
That's something else.
It is. It really is.
No,
but I've never experienced this sort of, like, I don't know. I've never met someone who's like, he's white, I don't think he's guilty.
Beyond the joke on the Dave Chappelle show, I've never encountered this.
Yeah.
But what struck me is, like, I think the case in Georgia that Judge Newman starts talking about, occurred in the 80s or something, I believe.
Yeah, the 1980s. Like Timothy Foster was accused of killing an elderly white woman when he was a teenager.
Yeah, this happened a long time ago, and I get every time I see stories like this, I think there's always a tendency to be like, well, did that happen a long time ago? No, dear reader or listener. It actually says that in Alabama, another progressive bastion of America,
Houston County, Alabama. So it's got two southern bastions.
Yeah, what the hell are they doing there?
That's weird.
It's at least it wasn't like Rhodesia, Alabama, or they named cities after places these people have no interest in going. Anyway,
Nuremberg, Mississippi.
Yeah, but in Alabama between 2005 and 2009, 80% of black jurors were struck from death penalty cases. And I was like, Jesus Christ, Alabama. You know what I mean?
So I guess the logic goes that black people will want black people to be innocent, and prosecutors really wanted to kill black people that were on trial.
Yeah.
So when you do that...
I was actually... This is going to get off topic here, but I was actually thinking, like, there's so much of a drive for prosecutors and defense attorneys to just win.
No, and I know it's not racial. I know they're trying to win by any means necessary, and they are buying into this bankrupt philosophy that black people vote with race.
But I don't know. That seems to be really impartial. If you're a state prosecutor, as most of these cases would be tried by, your career is kind of like, like Ted Cruz, the jackass we spoke about before. He used to be a prosecutor, I believe. Or at least some kind of dirty lawyer, and
his dad helped to kill John F. Kennedy. So
good God, that's almost certainly probably not true. But it's in the world we live in. You can be sure of nothing. No, I was thinking, like, how can you make this more impartial? And bear with me, this is a little bit of a stretch, and I can feel Casey rolling his eyes in the future already.
Let's hear it, buddy.
But there was an article about a robot lawyer. I know. Woo! I'm jumping the shark.
Jurorbot 3000.
well, like, I was thinking like that, like a robot's completely impartial, perhaps so impartial that it's actually kind of terrifying. Like,
it's so impartial it's actually dead.
Yeah. Well, and I was thinking about, if we have like automated, basically this was like a paralegal. It wasn't like a prosecutor or defense attorney or anything like that. But what is our this is a completely different conversation. I'm kind of trying to steer us toward for no damn reason. But like, what does a more automated justice system look like? And obviously the cultural ramifications and debate that would have to be had over that is a long time away.
I really disagree with this, but we'll need to talk about it. I don't think if we're already going to complain about the outcome of a jury decision and point to, oh, well, they were all women or they were all black. How much easier will it be to be like, well, it was a robot? Like, if it made one weird calculation, then that gets extrapolated through all the other calculations. Listen, hold on.
I don't mean to suggest this is a good idea. it's something that occurred to me, and I thought it might be interesting to to confront you about.
Well, no, listen. Why not keep the identity of the person secret from the jurors and just have the facts of the crime?
This is a little less of a strange topic from the Bleeding Edge. It was about what if I don't know if this was in the Bleeding Edge, but it was about
I think it was
what if prosecutors don't know the race of or perhaps gender or any number of identity markers. What if they don't know any identity about the person they're prosecuting?
I think that's ideal. But the way we do it, I think the way we do it, where it's eye to eye, it's what would I say? The ethic there is that we want the person to be face to face with the people that are going to be trying him, like that heightens accountability for some reason. But if this person's still being presumed innocent, why are you trying to bring them to account because you always hear they need to be face to face with their jury. It's a jury of your peers, and that's another thing. Jury of your peers, doesn't that often get interpreted demographically? That black people should have the right to be tried by black people, white people by white people, and so forth.
Yeah, no, I mean I think it's supposed to be like geographically, not in terms of like your identity.
Well, but you know that you can often get the what do they call it? A change of venue.
Yeah, sure. If you being tried in a specific locality biases your ability to get a fair trial, like for instance, if I'm
but that usually means racial, right? Like especially in the South, a black guy
can
getting tried in an all-white area.
If you're just a really unpopular guy in your town, like if you live in, for instance, Calcutta, Kansas, then
what?
I'm sure that's a thing.
And your name is Jim Pakistan.
Yeah. And
what are we doing?
Like if you're the town drunk or something, you're gonna end up with
town drunk.
Yeah. If everyone knows, oh, that guy's drunk.
Oh, there goes Otis, the town drunk from Andy Griffith.
The town drunk of Calcutta, Kansas.
Whoa, Calcutta, Kansas. Sounds good.
But no, what I'm thinking. Well, first of all, the main thing I want to steer us back to this story, I guess, instead of robots in Calcutta.
I mean, I can see the point is that they need to be unbiased, right? The jurors should be, and I honestly think hiding like what the article says about limiting the number. It's talking about limiting the number to 2, sort of audibles that the prosecutors can call pre-trial. But I think why do that if you could just keep the identity? I mean, there's probably some nuance of the law that I'm missing about why the jurors need to see the guy. But why not? All I keep picturing is Saddam Hussein in his little cage at court. But why not have the juror? What's the guy who's getting tried? Is he the defendant? Not the defendant.
The defendant. Yeah.
Is it the defendant? Okay. The defendant, why not have him like in a little 2-way mirror box? I know it sounds silly, but have him present, but the jurors shouldn't be able to see him and make judgment based on his looking at him, based on anything superficial.
No, and just I think I want to close the loop on this one, but the one thing that I really wanted to take away from this article, all white juries may not necessarily get a different decision than a mixed race jury or an all black jury. Hell. But the perception can erode relations between communities and authorities, and I think that's really one of the big takeaways for me here. And I mean, just based on this article, neither one of us are legal experts, but based on this article, clearly, I'm all for scaling back the number of peremptory, which is a word I learned today actually, peremptory challenges that lawyers get. So
I am too. In the meantime, until we invent invisibility boxes for defense.
Until we invent robot jurors, judges, and prosecutors. But moving on, our latest article this week is done by some schmuck named Adam Simpson.
Get him.
Yeah, it's called "Transnational Cap and Trade is not the solution to the climate crisis." It's been up for all of a few hours now.
Don't let the title fool you. It's actually pretty interesting. Cap and trade.
Last week we had a fantastic title. This week, garbage title. Yeah.
It literally just says what it's about, but it's pretty.
But
really
unlike last week where we had a great title and a garbage article, this one we have a garbage title and a great article.
Okay.
But
one of these days they'll match. Garbage
Yeah.
and garbage.
Yeah, garbage to garbage. But no, basically cap and trade, of course. If you exceed the amount of pollution you're allowed to produce, if you exceed the cap, you have to purchase carbon credits, which get traded to other programs like sustainability efforts or mitigation efforts or renewables, et cetera, et cetera. California's plan is in kind of considering expanding their cap and trade program to Brazil, to an indigenous community that would conserve more of the Amazon rainforest, which I believe they should do. I say that in the article that I think it'd be nice if we recognize something like that as a national security interest.
Right, and I think California's notion was why not help out the developing world, all right? But it seems to take damage that's being done here in America and try to balance it out by improving conditions abroad. So things keep getting worse and worse here and better abroad.
I mean, I there's a lot there that I talk about in the article. Actually, I mean, we like the wealthy nations of the world have in my view, a big debt to the less developed nations that are on the front lines of this issue, that haven't produced as much pollution historically. The U.S. being the number one polluter in terms of fossil fuel emissions. Ever. I think we account for like 25% of this of all time. World champions. But,
more than cows?
We got a lot of cows, buddy. But it's. I mean, when you
you said
factor in
fossil
something
fuels.
like that.
Yeah, fossil
Yeah.
fuels.
Well, when you factor in, I think in the article it's specifically emissions, greenhouse gas emissions, and you calculate that from a lot of sources. One of them being methane and deforestation, both of which related to livestock production. But yeah, and basically my point is that there's so many subsidies on the fossil fuel industry that I don't think it makes sense to, give them money here and then say, give me money here. It's just, I think it's overly convoluted and kind of a silly strategy. In my mind, you simplify the whole thing if you say carbon tax, and by the way, we're going to be supporting international efforts. Some of that money can come from the taxes you pull out of it. In my mind, a carbon tax has the potential to be somewhat regressive, so you'd want to funnel it to policies and programs that can offset that. But
right.
in my mind, you keep it simple.
And you should really have, like, if a company is polluting their local river, having them send money abroad doesn't fix the immediate problem.
I mean, if they're polluting the local river, they should be prosecuted and they should be thrown in jail.
Sure, yeah,
but we're talking specifically about air pollution, which for some reason air pollution coming from emissions, which for some reason we don't think of that as a public health nightmare. But I think in the Bleeding Edge, again, you got to subscribe. A few weeks ago, we had an article about millions of people being dying in India. No, I think it was millions. I think it was a few 100,000 people dying in India due to air pollution.
Well, they say now 1 in 8 people in New Delhi die from air pollution related lung disease.
So hell, it might be millions. Yeah. Again, we just kind of pull numbers out of our ass here at Future Left. But no, the article's very good. No numbers there pulled out of my butt. So, yeah, it's an interesting article. Please do give us your feedback on it. I'd be happy to talk about it next week on the podcast. You can chat with us about it on Facebook, Twitter, and all that stuff. And joining us now from Cairo, Egypt, is Michael Bufano. Mike, how you doing today?
Feeling lovely, Adam. How's it going?
So we're gonna we're gonna jump right into the conversation about big data. Big data is the topic of the day. Big data is a big topic of the day. So recently, there's this OkCupid study that was by researchers in some godforsaken European socialist hellhole. And basically, the study was open access, so everyone can access the study. But it revealed 70,000 users of the dating website with lists of their usernames, gender, location, sexual preferences, and all made available to. And a nice, neat little data set. So I don't know if you two are familiar with how OkCupid works. But basically, you go in there, you put in a username, and you could even put your own name as your username if you're so bold. Check me out at Adam Simpson's 69 on OkCupid. No, but
Adam, I've got a little rule, Adam. you have to expect that some way, somehow, it's going to get out to other people. You just have to know these days that.
Look, Mike, I'm just trying to dress up like a squirrel and get treated like a dog. That's all. That's what I'm into.
That's confusing.
Well, it might be confusing to a novice, but I'm a pro, and I live the furry lifestyle, and it's my right as an American.
This conversation's gone down all sorts of wrong directions, man.
That's what it says in my user profile. No, I don't know. Yeah, nice, neat little data sets. So what basically normally OkCupid works, you get on there, you're like, hey, I like someone putting a foot in my mouth for an hour. And then it tries to find someone that's like, I want to put my foot in someone's mouth for an hour. And then after that, you like go on a date, you go to dinner. And then you
and for dessert, you have some foot.
Exactly.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't know. But when you log on, basically the only people that can see your information usually is other users of the site, and you have to go into someone's profile and like search for the foot and mouth question to see if they're into it. Part of the algorithm is they factor in like thousands of questions like butt stuff, mouth stuff, foot stuff. And I should say, OkCupid, some of it's like, do you prefer to pay for dinner? It's not all about just
Adam,
stuff you do with your body parts.
Adam, you seem a little familiar with this website.
I'm sorry. I'm editing this, so I'm allowed to do this. But what the fuck, Adam?
What? We're having a good time.
Justine, you so need to join this conversation.
Oh my God.
We need a woman's perspective on this.
This one's so dirty, so bad.
We're talking about OkCupid. It's fine.
It didn't get dirty. We were just talking about putting foots in mouths.
But stuff.
Butt stuff is literally the nicest way you could say that.
Okay.
What, should I say sodomy?
No. I'm gonna leave it in there. I'm just letting you know.
Okay.
That's what she said.
Oh, okay. All right.
She said she's gonna leave it in there in my mouth.
The Mormons call that soaking.
Continue.
All right, hold on. All right, what was I talking about?
Isn't that what Mormon tea is?
Mormons and soaking in foots and mouths.
Yeah, there's probably like a OK Mormon Cupid. I don't think they're probably.
It's called not OkCupid.
No, that actually it's a separate subject. Anyway, so it's sort of public. I mean, really, what it is you give this. You're giving this information so that this dating website can find you a woman that'll put up with your, all the leather that you're into. Or a man or something else. It's 2016, but yeah, and I don't know that anyone ever intended for their location, their username, all of this stuff to be put out there for public use in a really easily accessible data set. I mean, one could argue, and it was definitely in the OkCupid case, it's not a leak, but AshleyMadison.com, that was a leak. And suddenly people went from an expectation of privacy to all their secrets being put out there that they're looking for.
I just wanted people to know that I like a woman to dress up like a nun and spank me with a fucking riding crop. I don't want people to know my address.
Exactly.
That's personal.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, yeah. I mean, Mike, you really have no sympathy for the people of OkCupid, degenerates like me.
Well, it's not just no sympathy, but I also think that people have to lighten up when it comes to people's sexual preferences, and we're all a little weird in one way or another. I think we just have to come to accept this, and the internet has really revealed that there are some really strange individuals out there. Most of us are pretty weird.
And there was a time when these strange individuals would never had hope of finding each other, But if I were born 100 years ago, I would never be able to find a lady that was willing to dress up in a newspaper and call me. I don't know where I was going with that, but it doesn't make any sense. But anyway, yeah, it's it's one of the gems of modernity that you can find someone that's equally as crazy as you.
Me and Adam were talking about what if Franklin Roosevelt's sexual preferences have been leaked and we found out he was a kinky guy. I mean, wouldn't that hurt his public perception? And I was like, it probably would, but it shouldn't, because it doesn't do anything to his track record, his professional track record.
Yeah, there was that one movie where he got an HJ, and I felt it was scandalous.
Movie?
Yeah, it was in a movie. Bill Murray as
really?
Franklin D. Roosevelt got an HJ from Laura Linney, I believe.
interesting.
Really relevant to the big data conversation.
But I don't want a president who hadn't gotten a hand job from Laura Linney.
Laura Linney was playing someone else, I should say.
That's why I'm a Bernie supporter.
I think after Bill Clinton, nothing that a president does can shock me.
No, well, you're not representative.
Oral
of the
sex
United
is
States.
shocking.
Well, it's not in terms of. I mean, the guy had affairs with all of his interns, and the guy was getting
all of them, even you, Steve.
It wasn't like classy like JFK, where he's hold up, wait, you fucking Marilyn Monroe like in the president's bedroom.
Yeah, and then had her killed. It's classy
from
classy
his
stuff.
interns, man. I mean, this guy was that. So yeah, there's a little bit of a difference between Clinton and JFK. But no, there's nothing that would surprise me with most of it. As long as they're, legal, man, and it's consensual, I could not give a rat's ass.
But the American people,
in the bedroom,
the American people, we like to deceive ourselves into thinking any little thing we hear about. People are always like, what about in the future when people of this generation want to run for president and all your information's out there? People found out that you went to a kegger in high school. Like, are people going to be like, oh my word, I couldn't vote for someone like that.
No, I mean, I just feel like at some point, we're gonna have someone running for public office, and we'll be like, "Did you know in 2016 OkCupid leak, Ted Cruz Jr. posted that he wants some lady to go pee on his tummy?" And I
you went straight to Ted Cruz there, man.
Well, to his children.
But are we? But at that point, we're probably not going to care anymore. I would think because we're going to be slowly.
I mean, but this is kind of why I wanted to have this discussion. Sex is probably the most private thing that we do. Probably, maybe. I mean, all the murder aside. But is this going to be kind of a cultural artifact that, like, hey, back in Nana's day, no one knew that she was into having strangers choke her a little bit.
I think we're just gonna. I think we're gonna redefine. Sorry, Mike. I'll just say this quickly. I think we're gonna have to redefine what privacy is, and I think we're gonna have new ways of maintaining that privacy. Mike, go ahead.
Well, I think there's a difference. Let's say if I'm having sex in a bedroom, right, and some perv comes walking into my room and takes a picture and then runs. That's violating my privacy. But if I decide to be like, Mr. Wiener, that politician from a few years ago, I take a picture of my junk and I put it online. That's just you being a little frisky, and if people end up seeing that, that's kind of your fault, I guess. You get what I'm saying? Like, you kind of deserve it if that type of stuff does get out.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if you deserve it. You can't not expect it. You can't think that's out of the realm of possibility. And I also think that it's so odd that in this day and age of Facebook and Twitter, where people want to make their lives so public and take pictures of their food, and then they're like, well, hold on, I still demand my privacy.
But I don't know. Here's the thing. We would all be really uncomfortable if there was a drone that followed us around everywhere, hovering and just with a camera on us constantly. I think we all agree on that. But the level of data that is collected by all of the services that we use, where we go, the purchases we make, the people we talk to, this is a lot of data, and the notion that there's somewhere on Amazon and Facebook and Google.
I think in terms of obviously in terms of politics, if you're a politician and you're running for office, we're going to know everything about your life by the time that campaign ends.
I think the stuff that can be dragged up about a presidential candidate isn't the same sort of stuff that the NSA and the FBI are going after. I mean, normally the stuff that's pulled up about presidents are things that were put out there fairly publicly. I mean, they wouldn't have to go in and collect the metadata, like they're finding pictures or they're talking to people who the candidate knew in college. That's different than them going in and taking your shopping history or things like that, which I didn't realize that the government does not need to suspect you of a crime, and they don't even need a warrant to collect that information. We always hear
the metadata, right? That's completely available to the government.
I always thought they're not going to look at that unless they suspect you of something, and that's probably true. But they don't have to wait until then.
But they would be the government, right? Is that what we're saying?
Yeah.
But what about a Google executive? Or how someone with the access to Google's things, they know that you searched for how balloons of cocaine
Well,
can I fit into my bottom?
Here's my problem with that. It's, I don't mind with somebody, advertising something to me. That's not a big deal. What I do worry about is big companies having access to these huge data sets to get insider information and getting an advantage when it comes to trading on the stock market. This could lead to things like the centralization of wealth, the continued centralization of wealth in the hands of the few.
Yeah, I mean, just thinking about the data issue, and we're talking about commercial data mostly right now. That's what I want to focus on for the moment. We'll turn to government in a minute, but think about the commercial use of data. Google, Amazon, all of these places, they know where you are, who are you with, what are you doing, who are you talking to, how do you spend your time, how do you spend your money. This is a lot of information about a person, and both of you have already expressed that if you put information online, it's going to get leaked. Expect it to get leaked. That's the sense I got from you.
Well, no, it's not. No, it's not even that it's getting leaked. It's not like there's hackers picking it up. It's that you're putting it into the systems of these companies who monitor it. So, and I'll be honest with you, I like the fact that that Amazon keeps track of my purchasing practices and then recommends things to me on the commercial side. Makes things a lot more convenient. A lot more personalized, and I'm completely okay with that.
Okay, so I mean this is actually the issue with commercial use of data. We're used to arguments about would you give up privacy for security? That's kind of a classic argument, right? But it seems to me that at least Casey, Mike, I want to know how you feel about this. Mm-hmm. Are we willing to give up privacy for convenience?
Well, I think what Casey just said is absolutely correct. All of this data does enable businesses, right, to be able to advertise to you.
Even small businesses actually can get in on this game. They can sell the data that they collect to other companies, and not that this is a small business at all, but Walgreens. There's a book called Digital Exhaust by Dale Neef, which is a neat name.
Neat name.
And I can't find the source right now, so I'm kind of talking out of my hat. But roughly, Walgreens is by no means a small enterprise, but Walgreens sold. In I think 2012, sold information about their customers' medical records, their physicians, but not their medical records per se, but their prescription drugs, for about $750 million. And they got hit for that. They got a lot of flack for it, and I think they were actually penalized. Now I don't know the facts of that case, but your data, the data that you generate and by your consumption, it's capital to other people. So it's not even about making the whatever industry more efficient. The data is in and of itself is worthwhile, and it's your data. Do you think that you have any right to that money? Like you as a person, forget about the small business thing, but you as a person, should you see some of that wealth, $750 million?
Oh wow, it's kind of a big question there. I would have to first say no, because you're not providing a service.
But here's another issue, Mike. We like when Apple. Do either of you read or do either of you have Apple products?
Yes.
Mike?
No.
Okay, Casey, have you, when you use your Apple products, you had to basically click I agree on a user agreement, right?
Yes.
Did you read it?
No, of course not.
No, of course not. No one reads it. So we consent to giving, and this isn't just Apple. I'm not just picking on Casey. Mike, I'm sure you've agreed to as I have, to hundreds of user agreements that I haven't read. For right now, let's just think about Apple, or not even Apple, but any of the number of user agreements that I'm sure we've all agreed to. I've agreed to hundreds. I've read zero.
And I've never read any of them before.
I feel like that the number of people that have read their user agreements is probably a fraction of a decimal. You know what I mean? And we consent to this data being given out. I don't know that we're aware of the consequences when we do it. It's kind of like when young college kids, they sign up for a student loan. I don't know that when I signed up for my student loans, I was really aware of what it meant. And that's my own fault. I don't mean to lay that on anyone else's feet. I'm not trying to move the conversation towards that. But I don't know. It seems to me that it could be streamlined in such a way that, you could probably say to Apple, I'm okay with this data being distributed, but you can't tell people where I am. You cannot collect that data. Is that appropriate to someone to say to Apple for using an iPhone? I don't want you to collect my my location. I don't want you to store that information. That information has to be destroyed. Do you think that's an appropriate thing for a customer demand of the product?
Should a terrorist be able to say that? I know that I'm being like, should a terrorist, Adam, be able to say? But I'm asking, do you think someone who
Well,
that'd be an easy way to cover your tracks and you
I
didn't want
think
to be monitored?
as
Yeah,
long as there's
the thing is, we don't make law to suit whether or not to make life easier for a terrorist.
and I think if you're stupid enough to sign something,
But it's not about being stupid, Mike. I mean, but all of us here, I don't think of Mike you as very stupid. I think of Casey as only a little stupid.
Sure.
And I don't think that I don't think it's fair to say that you're stupid for not knowing the agreement that you make, because all of us here are completely unaware. We've all admitted this, right?
Right, but I don't think there's anything big in it. Otherwise, I feel like we would have heard about it. And again, I know that always sounds naive, but again, I don't think you'd have someone at Apple would be saying, no, this isn't cool, and they'd be speaking out about it. Or
No. I mean, it's all public knowledge. We know, like your iPhone. Yeah, they take all the data they can out of it.
Yeah, of course.
So the idea that like I don't know if they're taking and they're storing information about where you are. They are. We know that they are.
Sure.
They being Apple.
On a personal level, I would find it unethical for myself as an individual to be selling my medical information and information about myself for profit. So I would never do that. It's not hurting me that Walgreens is doing that.
Think about the Internet of Things, how everything is being made to produce more and more data, from your car to your some people have smart homes about how much data about air conditioning and heat and what's in your refrigerator.
But that's all saved locally, though, right?
No, I mean, no. It's put on. It goes to the internet. The Amazon has this new thing where you can sign up to buy groceries from Amazon. You have these little things that you click a button and it adds it to your cart. Or click a button like a button in the real world, like you have it around your house, like when you're out of Tide or whatever bullshit you need to buy. You hit the button and it adds it to your cart, and then at the end of the week you hit purchase or whatever. And yeah, that's super convenient. But I don't know. Think about this is a lot of data. I don't know. And if you overlay it on top of each other, you get a pretty clear picture of a person's life. Moving into the government side of this, Michael Hayden actually said, this is a quote that was in the Nation article that I gave you. The Nation article being "Is Privacy Obsolete?" by David Cole from March 25th, 2015. Michael Hayden, the former director of the NSA, once said, "We kill people based on metadata." So moving to the government side of this, how much? So I do get a sense that Apple and everyone, they operate in this kind of gray zone where they're like data isn't really as regulated as maybe we feel it should be. Maybe you have different disagreements there. But when it comes to the government, what I mean, certainly I think I saw a video. It was on PBS or something. Some guy said, yeah, I'm giving all the credit. But some guy said, I don't want Congress creating algorithms. I think we all agree there. What's the appropriate regulatory role of government with regard to big data?
I think as long as there's transparency and there's a proper system in place where, if a police department wants to get a warrant, they could then go and get that metadata to be able to, investigate.
Right now they don't need warrants. The
and
NSA, as a matter of fact, just takes all the data, and this is part of the Edward Snowden.
And that's a problem, isn't it? That's a problem. There needs to be a system in place where it's transparent, where there's a warrant, where there's a judge involved. So I think the system needs reforms.
But here's why I think it's connected. We don't really make a fuss about what Apple does with our data, but we do. I get a sense that we'd have more of a problem if the government was like trying to pass a bill where they were like, we're going to start collecting everyone's tweets, as the Library of Congress now does. We're going to start collecting everyone's metadata and store it in big servers in the middle of Utah, I believe. If they went about this process that way, I feel like there'd be a big pushback. We don't really care if Apple takes our data, but if the government were to come out with a bill and say, we're going to start collecting everyone's tweets and storing in the Library of Congress, as the Library of Congress now does, or we're going to take everyone's metadata, we're going to store it in servers in the middle of Utah, as the NSA does. People don't seem very alarmed at the loss of privacy. Is there a way to put the genie back in the bottle, gentlemen?
I don't think there's a way to put it back. I really, for me, as long as there's democratic checks and balances and there's a monitoring of this system, it's okay.
Which there aren't.
There should be.
But there does need to be checks and balances, because we don't want a situation where it turns into 1984. There's a lot of authoritarian governments that are used, like in China, for example, where they've censored. There's no YouTube, there's no Facebook in China. They've created their own social networking sites like Youku, and they spy on their own people.
North Korea is now piloting their version of Facebook. I don't know why, so they can collect more, basically try to get more into the heads of their population. But
I guess the 20.
Yeah, go ahead.
I guess the 20 people who own computers in North Korea are going to be
sick burn. Yeah. So I don't know.
You could just cut that out, by the way.
No.
No, we're leaving it. No, as long as these things are being, like I've said, there's a lot of information, a lot of evidence that could be used for catching very bad people by going through collected data. But like Mike said, right now there's literally no limit on what criteria they have to get this information. They can get it anytime they want without a warrant. Those things should be in place. We should be pushing for legislation that at least puts some sort of constraints on their ability to do that. But I don't want there to be a situation where bad people can say, I don't want you to be able to check my data, and so they, there's some evidence that can only be captured through data like that.
I think we're gonna have to have a compromise as a society between, the need for security and the need to have our freedom and privacy in check. That's always going to be a compromise we're going to have to make. And
I guess I don't really make a distinction between the government knowing everything about our lives and Apple knowing everything about our lives. And maybe you both of you could help define why you think that there's a difference there.
Because Apple can arrest you.
Yeah, that's a good reason. They can't torture you. They can't.
But here's the thing: the part of the Prism, which is the program that Snowden leaked, is that basically if Apple's got it, if Google's got it, if Facebook's got it, the NSA's got it. So, that's one reason I don't see a distinction. But I don't know. I guess I don't really trust, and maybe it's rude. I don't trust Apple any more than I trust the government.
There isn't. They're giving you this 10-page long document written in very abstract wording. Of course, nobody's going to read through this. So things do need to change.
But here's the thing: even if you do read it, and I know we're going back into the commercial stuff, even if you do read it, you probably want the service. And I feel like you read it and maybe you understand what it says, maybe you have problems with it, but because you want a smartphone, you want to live in the 21st century, you click yes, you click I agree, right?
Well, sure.
Well, people smoke even though they know by now it's there's a potential of lung cancer.
I think this
and
is
throw your
different.
information up there.
I think this is different because
I
actually believe that there's a way to have these services and not just give away all of our rights to anonymity and obscurity and privacy.
But even if you have an honest company, there's always a chance of a hacker, right, getting on there.
Actually, interestingly enough, the EU they wanted to propose laws that require data protection, and companies could be fined up to 5% of their revenue for data breaches where they were found negligent. Well, how does that grab you, gentlemen?
I like it. It'll make companies more responsible if these things do happen, and they'll have to invest more in cybersecurity.
But doesn't that freeze out smaller and medium-sized enterprises that can't afford the type of cybersecurity that others can? Doesn't that put kind of a freeze on this startup culture that we have now?
Well, that's always the threat of regulation. I just did this paper on banks, and the Dodd-Frank Act, which was meant to regulate the banks, it had an ironic side effect. By increasing the amount of regulation, smaller banks, they have to pay more money. And as a result, a lot of them end up merging with larger companies.
It's the same type of argument when we talk about environmental regulations, and that's why a lot of businesses give a lot of money to the government to not pass that sort of legislation. They don't want to pay the extra money to outfit their equipment to have less carbon emission or things like that. So I mean that it's not a very compelling argument for me. And while I do have sympathy for small businesses, I almost think that if they can't provide the type of security that's necessary, they shouldn't be collecting the same levels of data.
I mean, I feel like that could very well lead to monopoly of certain industries. But with regard to the government, think about, recently this was in the bleeding edge. The Canadians got caught doing this using MC catchers, which basically cast a wide net and collect all kinds of metadata. The Canadians are kind of having this debate. This is in the bleeding edge, by the way, about the police using MC catchers, and a lot of police, and actually Dale Neef in the book I was telling you about, Digital Exhaust, was talking about a trickle-down effect of this type of surveillance, and that local police departments are using this kind of MC catchers to collect metadata, which they then share up to the NSA and stuff like that.
Like I've said, I really don't have a problem with law enforcement collecting data, and also the more data they collect, the less able they're going to be able to just peruse anyone's information randomly for no reason.
That's a good point.
The more likely it becomes that they're only going to be looking for specific people who are suspected of specific things.
But think about all of the metadata that we've been collecting. It didn't stop the Boston bombing. It didn't stop the San Bernardino shooting. It didn't stop the horror in Paris last October or November, rather.
Well, I think people seriously overestimate the full knowledge of their government. They couldn't see the 2007 housing crash coming, despite all the data that was there.
There are also programs law enforcement uses, automatic license plate readers, and actually they got burned in Philadelphia a few weeks ago, and they've since denied that they had anything to. That this was at all authorized. Certainly Google had nothing to do with it, but a police car that was going around reading license plates had a Google Maps sticker on the side of it so that people wouldn't question the big thing on the top of the car. And if you get enough of these cars on the road, you can get a pretty clear picture of where everyone is at any given time. Not that you need it if you have the metadata from their cell phones. People have that in their pockets. They don't need the car for that. But, I mean, it seems to me that law enforcement is kind of overstepping its bounds here.
Well, I think this technology has the potential to go down two extremes. On the one hand, you can get that Orwellian state where you get an authoritarian government that can see and watch what everybody's doing, crack down on dissent, use algorithms to find out who's protesting against the government. But I also think that it has a really positive potential. It can improve governance. It can help the government figure out what does its citizens need, how can it improve infrastructure, how can it improve people's lives. We don't want to just keep talking about this Mad Max scenario, right, where we're going to head down this authoritarian.
Thanks for bringing up Mad Max again, Mike.
Yes.
This is the fifth one in a row. But yeah, you almost can't. I often feel like I'm naive, and people are rolling their eyes when I say, "Yeah, I don't see our government." I'm not saying I just don't see our government. No, I don't see the government taking the time. The government's too inept. I don't. Adam mentioned that the collection of data didn't stop the. He mentioned all the terrorist activity that weren't stopped by that, but that could also be an argument for why we don't need law enforcement. That law enforcement doesn't stop these sort of things. So
no. That's not what I mean to suggest. Mm-hmm. I mean to suggest that, and I thought this is where you were going, Casey. That if you get so much data, you don't really know where to begin in order to analyze it. If you collect metadata on every American citizen, which virtually that's what's occurring or was occurring. Maybe they've changed, but they haven't. But if you get to a point where you're collecting everyone's data, it can be very difficult to as people often say, separate the signal from the noise. That's why you didn't get there's always hindsight in like the case of the Boston bombing where we knew that these guys were bad but we didn't really connect the dots, and there's a lot of hand wringing, It's because you have so much data that law enforcement and counterterrorism and counterintelligence are relying on that they can't really hone in on specific issues.
There
Well,
aren't
that's
really
what-
many. There aren't really many cases, right, where they've been able to mine through this data and caught somebody before they did something. I mean,
Well,
how many-
They probably have. I mean,
Well,
I'm
but
sure.
the-
I'm sure they have. But
That's why I always think of this thing being used in terms of catching a person that they know by name. They can monitor an individual. Yeah, obviously it wouldn't be. I mean, if you had better, let's say, the use of AIs could improve their ability to
Exactly.
to
That's
to,
actually where I'm going with
to
this.
comb through the data. Then they
Yeah.
could find things possibly
I mean,
beforehand.
if you apply an artificial intelligence as capable as IBM's Watson, for example, maybe you can do stuff like that. And certainly DARPA is the U.S. Defense Department of Defense's advanced research in something or another. DARPA, they do like all of this research into robotics and stuff like that. They also are very interested in artificial intelligence for this reason, so that you can go through. You have all this data and you can go through it and use it. But it seems to me that leaves it open to a really accelerated version of the big data problem that I've been trying to kind of quantify here, or qualify rather.
I think your worry is that artificial intelligence will put together things. It'll find patterns that aren't natural, that are actually there, but are just a technicality, and that people will be charged with things they didn't commit. I don't think that will. I don't think that will happen, because I think an AI, at least for the foreseeable future, will need to be monitored by an actual human being. They'll need to look at the returns of the AI and determine, is this indeed a real thing, or is it a false flag?
Yeah, I was just going to say
positive.
that there's still so many limits to this technology. At the end of the day,
Absolutely.
police force still requires human beings on the ground, making relationships with the community, establishing trust. It's this computer technology is still limited in terms of what it can do. It's an aid for now. We learned this from Iraq. I mean, Donald Rumsfeld's strategy with Iraq was to have a technology-heavy military, one light on manpower, heavy on technology, that could quickly oust Saddam Hussein, which it did, but he had hoped that would also lead to the U.S. occupying the country and stabilizing it, and that didn't happen.
If you had some policy recommendations, let's start with commercial use of data. What do you think are the policy implications there? Should there be a more user-friendly interface with these agreements? Should customers have a right to the data that people are taking from them and using and selling? Like, what in your mind? How do you approach this?
I think it should be like cigarettes, right? Where you put up a big picture, as I said before, of some smoked out lung, but like, for example, with big
cigarettes are different, because there's no cigarette you can smoke that it won't promote cancerous cells in your body. I really find it. Maybe I'm just naive about this, but I find it hard to believe that you can't generate a data system whereby people, or services rather, whereby people don't have everything about their lives known by corporations.
In terms of laws that are passed, I think if it is negligence in the company, let's say if someone hacks into their software, that if the company's at fault, that they should, the people should be able to sue them.
I think that on one level, so this is part one, because I know you get frustrated hearing that people need to be educated on this, as if they should just be told, hey, this is what we're going to do, you have to deal with it. But I think people should be informed, and I think that there should be a limit, or I think there should be discussion, at least, because I definitely don't know enough about this. I can't think of an objective reason why a company giving out my data to other companies is wrong. I can't think of like an objective moral. I can't think of an argument for that data belongs to me.
Here's an example. Target used to brag about being able to predict about someone's where they were in their pregnancy based on what they were buying, and they would send them coupons and like little letters that were like, "Oh, you're expecting." Buy this, and then they accidentally sent such a letter to a teenager in Kentucky. Target knew she was pregnant before her father did.
Wow!
So yeah, she knew she was pregnant, and so did, I don't know, the fucking captain of the JV football team. But I mean, yeah, it's romantic. But in my mind, yeah, I know it's all service based, but there are consequences to this data. There are downsides to corporations knowing everything about you.
So was this girl like a minor and still living with her parents? Is that the issue?
She was in high school.
Okay, well then shouldn't her parents have been aware that she was pregnant?
Not if she wanted to terminate the pregnancy. Not if she wanted to find tell her parents on her own terms. I mean, she certainly probably would have preferred Target not find out about it. I mean, you think about how this could have gone wrong. What if her father was abusive? What if her father's the one that impregnated her? What if? I mean, the data doesn't take into account every single potential outcome.
I can't imagine a future where there isn't this sort of data collection because ultimately the ability for it to make things more convenient, more streamlined, make services more intelligent.
So, let me ask you this: is there a future where we have privacy still?
As data mining techniques and technologies become more advanced, so will the defenses against those things. And I foresee the future being a back and forth between privacy techniques and technologies and data mining techniques and technologies.
How can the government, though, regulate something that is changing so quickly?
And I want to throw another wrinkle into the OkCupid thing. So OkCupid actually filed a lawsuit against the study that was publicly released all of their user data. And the reason being is that OkCupid felt they had a right to that data. It was a copyright issue. They felt that their data was being sold or being given away, whereas they were used to selling that data.
Hey,
so I mean, their problem with it was not that the anonymity of their users had been compromised. Their problem with it was that they were losing money on data.
Well, I don't know if you remember that Dave Chappelle black white supremacist skit where during the skit Chappelle's he's playing this kind of this redneck Southern character. He goes, "That's my sister. If anybody's going to sleep with her, it's going to be me." Yeah, that's kind of reminds me of here. It's like that's our data. It's our job to manipulate that data for our own profit, not for somebody else to do it.
Do you think? It's particularly, I want to just nail down right here. What do we think about someone's right to their own data?
That's what I was about to talk about. I was going to say that at what point does information become property? Do I own facts about myself? I don't know. I don't know that I do. And I almost wonder that once I go on to Amazon or once I go to Walgreens and fill a prescription. Before I do that, there's this fact. I take this medication. There's this fact. I want to buy this book. Once it becomes digitized, then it becomes a little bit more material, and I can understand how the company would see that as their property, even though it's about you.
It's still completely immaterial, though.
I have to agree with Casey here. I mean, does a newspaper have to, pay every person that they write about?
The bottom line is that if someone will buy something, then it's a commodity. No, there's no company that's going to buy my personal information from me. They're wanting to buy it en masse from a Walgreens, from an Amazon. So it's the ability to make the transaction, I think, that makes something property. My information for me is not my property. It can be Amazon can turn it into property, and it would be theirs.
But I just feel like we're entering a phase of that we haven't been in for a long time, where we don't really have privacy. There's some arguments that, back a long time ago when we lived in smaller communities, everyone knew everything about each other, but you still had the ability to keep a secret.
At what point will this, and it seems like something that could be easily overstated, at what point will this data, especially when it's being combed through by AIs that can see very subtle patterns, will they be able to know what we like and don't like things that we haven't made public outside of our own minds? Like, will they start knowing our minds? Because those are the types of secrets that I feel like are inalienable.
It's a great point, but think about all the nonsense you type into Google.
Of course, sure.
Sometimes, when I'm bored, I'm like, how do you make a nuclear bomb with a pineapple and a stick of deodorant? And I get answers, and that's just a stupid thought that pops in my head. Or you'll type into Google are Asian people really hairless?
But
these are these are all really kind of thoughts. They don't mean anything. They're just.
But They're not just thoughts, right? Because once you type those bad boys out and you send it out on a server that's that contains all that data.
Well, I think what Adam's saying is
Or-
what is once these random nonsensical things are mined, will they be able to, over a period of time, will they be able to construct a more thorough picture of your mind? As long as we have our minds, our individual minds, then I think we'll be able to, tell ourselves that we still have some privacy.
Yeah, I feel the opposite, and obviously this is a continuing conversation. Privacy is going to keep coming up. I think there will be some other OkCupid story or something like it, or the LinkedIn data breach that happened recently. There's all kinds of data breaches. We're going to have a lot of opportunities to discuss the issue. But for today, I think we've spent enough time arguing about the subject. I've spent a lot of time being right. The other two of these idiots have spent a lot of time being wrong. But I'll get them there. Stay with us, folks. In any event, visit us at Future Left.